The expensive Italian mattress hits the garbage heap with a dull thud, dust rising in clouds around it. Kemi stands there, chest heaving, sweat pouring down her face, her hands still trembling from the effort of dragging it down the stairs and across the compound. "Let him come back to nothing!" she screams at the mansion behind her. 20 years of lies. 20 years of betrayal. What she doesn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, is that hidden deep inside those carefully stitched seams are bundles of foreign currency worth millions. Her husband's entire corrupt fortune, his escape plan, his secret insurance policy, all of it, thrown away at a moment of blind rage. Across the city, a former banker named Emeka sorts through garbage at the landfill, his stomach empty, his future hopeless. In just a few hours, his life and the life of that corrupt politician will collide in the most unexpected way. One woman's fury is about to become another man's miracle. But here's the question that will haunt everyone in this story. When Emeka and his wife discover what's really inside that mattress, will they keep millions in stolen money, or will their conscience force them to return it? Stay tuned, because what happens next will shock you to your core. Hello, guys. Welcome back to my channel. Before we dive into this incredible true story, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with your friends who love amazing real-life stories. Most importantly, turn on the notification bell so you never miss when I drop another mind-blowing story like this one. Now, here's a question for you. If you found millions in stolen money hidden in something you rescued from the trash, would you keep it or try to return it? Knowing your family is starving, knowing you've lost everything, knowing the money was stolen by corrupt politicians, what would you do? Drop your honest thoughts and reactions in the comments section below. I really want to know, would you see it as a blessing from God, or would your conscience eat you alive? All right, let's dive into this jaw-dropping story of corruption, divine justice, and life-changing decisions. The sprawling estate in Victoria Island, Lagos, stood as a monument to political power and corruption. Behind its imposing gates, Senator Adebayo Fashola and his wife Kemi lived a life that appeared blessed from the outside. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Uniformed staff moved silently through marble corridors, and visitors whispered that the couple was favored by fortune itself. But beneath the glittering surface, their marriage was a battlefield of betrayal and bitter silence. At 52, Senator Fashola was a master of political manipulation. Money flowed to him like the Niger River during rainy season, not through honest governance, but through calculated corruption. His allies praised him publicly while privately calling him ruthless. He wore his wealth like armor, but beneath it lay a soul consumed by greed, an insatiable appetite for power and pleasure. That sweltering Lagos afternoon, he left the National Assembly with a heavy leather briefcase tucked under his arm. Inside were crisp bundles of foreign currency, millions in dollars, pounds, and euros meant for rural development projects across southwestern Nigeria. The money was supposed to build schools in Ogun State, dig boreholes in Osun, and construct hospitals in Ondo. But Fashola had already decided none of it would reach the intended beneficiaries. As his bulletproof Mercedes glided through Lagos traffic, past street hawkers and overcrowded danfos, Fashola's lips curved into a satisfied smile. His driver, Musa, navigated expertly through the chaos, while Fashola calculated how to maximize his personal gain from the public funds. Instead of returning to his Victoria Island mansion, Fashola directed Musa to an exclusive hotel in Ikoyi. Waiting in the penthouse suite was Folklore, one of his many mistresses, a stunning 28-year-old model whose designer dress clung to her curves like silk on water. She welcomed him with champagne and promises of pleasure that his 45-year-old wife could no longer provide. To your continued success in the Senate, Folklore purred, raising her crystal glass. The bubbles caught the afternoon light, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lagos Lagoon. Fashola chuckled, his gold Rolex glinting as he clinked glasses with her. Success indeed. 3 days in Abuja await me tomorrow. Important meetings, no stress, and certainly no nagging wife. They laughed together as the evening dissolved into indulgence. Fashola's phone buzzed repeatedly. Kemi's name flashing on the screen, but he silenced it each time, tossing the device aside with practiced dismissal. Back in Victoria Island, Kemi lay alone in their king-size bed, the Egyptian cotton sheets feeling cold against her skin. The ornate ceiling fan circled overhead, casting moving shadows on walls decorated with priceless African art. She stared at her phone, watching her husband's number ring endlessly without answer. At 45, Kemi was no fool. The scent of foreign perfumes on his clothes, unexplained phone calls at odd hours, and weekend constituency meetings that lasted 3 days. She knew exactly where her husband was and what he was doing. 20 years of marriage had taught her to recognize the patterns of his infidelity. She tried calling again, hoping this time he might remember he had a wife waiting at home. The phone rang until voicemail picked up. Her chest tightened with familiar pain as she hung up and buried her face in silk pillows that smelled only of her own loneliness. Memories haunted her in the darkness. Their early years when Fashola was just an ambitious young lawyer with political dreams. Back then, he held her hand proudly at events, called her his queen, and promised they would rule Lagos together. Their laughter once filled these very rooms. Now those same walls echoed only with arguments and accusations. Around midnight, her phone finally buzzed with a text. Important meeting running late. Don't wait up. The lie was so casual, so practiced, that it cut deeper than any harsh word. Kemi threw the phone across the room, listening to it clatter against the marble floor. "Why am I still here?" she whispered to the empty mansion. The security guards patrolled outside. The generator hummed in the distance, and Lagos traffic created its eternal symphony beyond the gates. But inside their bedroom, silence reigned supreme. She wrapped her arms around herself, fighting tears that had become as familiar as breathing. The woman who once commanded respect at political gatherings now felt like a prisoner in her own palace. The irony wasn't lost on her, surrounded by unimaginable wealth, yet emotionally bankrupt. In the hotel suite across town, Fashola's conscience was as absent as his wedding ring, which he long ago stopped wearing to these encounters. He had no idea that hidden in their master bedroom mattress was his insurance policy, bundles of foreign currency representing years of stolen public funds, his emergency escape plan should political winds shift against him. What he also didn't know was that his wife's patience, stretched thin over 2 decades of humiliation, was finally reaching its breaking point. The mattress that held his fortune would soon become the catalyst for both their downstreams, and an unexpected miracle for a family drowning in poverty on the other side of Lagos. As dawn approached, 2 worlds existed in the same city. One drowning in excess while starving for genuine love, the other surviving on scraps while rich in dignity and hope. Soon, fate would bring these worlds crashing together in the most unexpected way. Will Senator Fashola's secret fortune remain hidden? What happens when a wife's rage collides with politicians' greed? Don't miss the next chapter, where everything changes in ways no one could predict. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This story is just getting started. On the opposite side of Lagos, far from the gleaming towers of Victoria Island, lay the sprawling Olusegun landfill. Under the merciless Nigerian sun, mountains of garbage stretched as far as the eye could see. Broken plastic chairs, torn clothing, rusted metal, and rotting organic waste created a landscape of desperation. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and clouds of flies rose each time a scavenger's stick disturbed the refuse. Among the hundreds of waste pickers working the dump was Emeka Okafor, a 38-year-old man whose lean frame bore the marks of years spent in survival mode. His faded Arsenal jersey, a gift from better days, was now stained with sweat and grime. His shorts were torn at the knees, and his feet were protected only by worn-out slippers that had seen too many miles of harsh terrain. Emeka bent to retrieve a plastic bottle, dropping it into the large sack slung across his shoulder. As he straightened, wiping sweat from his brow, his mind drifted back to the man he used to be. The memories came in waves, as they always did when the present became too overwhelming to bear. He had once worn crisp white shirts and polished black shoes. The memory of First Bank's air-conditioned Lagos Island branch was still vivid. Customers addressing him as Mr. Emeka, his steady handwriting flowing across loan documents, the respect in people's voices when he explained banking procedures. He had been assistant operations manager, a position he'd worked 7 years to achieve. Those were the days when he'd promised his wife Chioma that they would buy land in Lekki, build a house with a garden where their future children could play safely. Chioma believed him, her eyes shining with dreams of middle-class respectability. They had been young in love and convinced that hard work guaranteed success in Nigeria. But Nigeria had other plans. "Emeka," a fellow scavenger called out, interrupting his reverie. "Move your body. The truck drivers are coming with fresh load." He nodded and resumed picking through the garbage, his weathered hands sorting valuable items from worthless trash. The bank's downsizing had come without warning. Despite his loyalty and clean record, he'd found himself among the redundant staff. The pink slip had felt like a death sentence. He could still see the bank manager's sympathetic face. "Emeka, you've been dedicated, but the economy is forcing difficult decisions. Today is your last day." The small carton containing his personal items, a pen, a notebook, and a framed photo of him and Chioma at Bar Beach, had felt impossibly heavy as he walked out into Lagos's unforgiving sun. Chioma had cried when he told her, but quickly wiped her tears and held his hand. "We will survive this, my husband. God will provide another way." Her faith had been his anchor during those first desperate months of unemployment. The memories of that terrible night still haunted him. The fire had started in their Surreal apartment building around 2 a.m. when a neighbor's kerosene stove exploded. The flames spread with terrifying speed through the crowded tenement building. Smoke filled their lungs as desperate residents scrambled for exits. He had tried to save their documents, his degree certificates, their marriage certificate, even their small savings hidden under Mattress. But the fire was a hungry beast, consuming everything in its path. Chioma had grabbed his arm, shouting through the chaos, "Leave everything, Emeka. Our lives are more important." They escaped with only the clothes on their backs, watching helplessly as orange flames devoured their past and future. By morning, nothing remained but ashes and the acrid smell of burned dreams. Now, 3 years later, they lived in an abandoned construction site in Mushin. The incomplete building had no doors, no windows, just bare concrete walls and a leaking roof. Each night, Chioma spread a wrapper on the dusty floor, and they lay side by side, staring at the ceiling where lizards scurried and rats occasionally dropped debris. "Emeka," another voice interrupted his thoughts. This time it was Tund, an older scavenger with kind eyes and missing teeth. "You're thinking too much again. Save your strength for the work." Emeka nodded, forcing himself back to the present. Survival required focus. Philosophy was a luxury he couldn't afford. He bent to pick up a dented aluminum pot, testing its weight. It would fetch maybe 50 naira at the scrap metal dealer. The irony of his situation wasn't lost on him. Here he was, a man who once handled millions of naira in banking transactions, now celebrating the discovery of a torn plastic bag worth 2 naira. Yet there was dignity in honest work, even work that others looked down upon. As the afternoon sun reached its peak, Emeka paused to drink water from a shared plastic bottle. Around him, dozens of other scavengers continued their endless search for anything valuable. Some were former professionals like himself. Teachers who'd lost government jobs, mechanics whose shops had failed, traders who'd been bankrupted by economic policies. This was the other Nigeria, the one politicians like Senator Fashola never acknowledged in their speeches. While the senator counted stolen millions in air-conditioned comfort, Emeka counted naira coins, each one representing a small victory against starvation. "My husband," Chioma would say each evening when he returned home exhausted, "tomorrow will be better. I can feel it." Her faith remained unshakable, even when their dinner consisted of bread and pure water, even when rain leaked through their makeshift roof, even when other residents of the construction site looked at them with pity. She believed in divine intervention, in the possibility of miraculous change. Emeka wished he could share her optimism. As he filled his sack with the day's collection, he whispered a prayer he'd repeated countless times. "God, if you can see us down here, if you remember the man I used to be, please send us a sign that better days are coming." What he didn't know was that across Lagos, in a mansion filled with luxury and emptiness, fate was already preparing an answer to his prayer. A mattress stuffed with stolen money was about to begin a journey that would connect two families in a most unexpected way. From banking halls to garbage heaps, how did life change so drastically for Emeka? And what does fate have in store for the struggling family? You won't believe what's coming next. Smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for the most incredible twist you never saw coming. The Lagos heat had reached unbearable levels by the time Senator Fashola finally returned to his Victoria Island mansion. 3 days in the arms of his mistress had left him relaxed but completely oblivious to the storm brewing at home. His Mercedes purred through the electronic gates, past manicured gardens where sprinkler systems fought against the harsh sun. Inside the mansion, tension crackled like electricity before a thunderstorm. Kemi had spent those 3 days cycling through emotions: hurt, anger, humiliation, and finally, cold fury. She had tried calling repeatedly, only to be sent a voicemail. She had asked their driver, Musa, who avoided her eyes and mumbled excuses about important meetings. When Fashola strolled to the front door, his white Agbada still carrying the faint scent of expensive perfume, Kemi was waiting in the marble foyer. Her arms were crossed, her eyes blazing with 3 days' worth of accumulated rage. 3 days again, Adebayo, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. You disappear whenever you please, then return here smelling of perfume that isn't mine. Do you take me for a fool? Fashola loosened his tie with practiced nonchalance. His expensive shoes clicked against the marble as he headed toward the stairs, dismissing her with a wave. Kemi, I told you I had Senate business in Abuja. You know how these political meetings can extend. Don't start your usual drama. Drama? Kemi's voice rose like thunder. Senate business? In another woman's bed, perhaps? Do you think your money blinds me to your lies? Do you think this mansion hides your shame? The house staff froze in corners, their faces carefully neutral. They'd witnessed many such storms over the years, learning when to become invisible. Fashola's jaw tightened. Enough, woman. I provide everything for you. This house, your cars, your jewelry. I put food on this table and designer clothes in your wardrobe. Still you nag like a trader in Alaba Market. Kemi stepped closer, trembling with 20 years of suppressed fury. Food, cars, clothes. What use are they when you shame me in the city? Every political gathering, every social event, people whisper about your affairs. You call yourself a senator, but you're nothing but a cheat and a coward. The slap echoed through the mansion like a gunshot. Kemi staggered backward, her cheek burning, but her dignity kept her upright. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. You will not break me, Adebayo, she hissed. You can hit me, but you will never silence me. Fashola's breathing was heavy, his expensive watch catching the light as his hands trembled with rage. I will not stand here and listen to your disrespect in my own house. He snatched his car keys from the side table. I have better places to be than dealing with your madness. The front door slammed so hard that crystal glasses rattled in their cabinets. Tires screeched as his Mercedes roared out of the compound, leaving clouds of dust settling on the perfectly maintained lawn. The silence that followed was deafening. Kemi stood alone in the vast foyer, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Around her, the trappings of wealth seemed to mock her pain. Italian marble, Swiss crystal, German cars. All of it meaningless without respect, without love, without basic human dignity. Suddenly, her fury erupted like a volcano. With a scream that echoed through the mansion, she grabbed a crystal vase from the side table and hurled it at the wall. It exploded into glittering fragments, the sound satisfying in its violence. The destruction felt liberating. She seized the decorative bowl and sent it crashing into flat-screen television. Sparks flew as the screen shattered, electronic components spilling onto the marble floor. You want to destroy our marriage, she shouted at the empty air. Then feel what it's like to lose something precious. Her rage drove her outside into the compound. She grabbed a heavy flower pot and hurled it with all her strength at Fashola's prized Mercedes S-Class. The windshield spiderweb with a satisfying crack. She found a stone from the garden path and sent it through the rear window of his Range Rover. 20 years, she screamed at the mansion. 20 years of lies and humiliation. The security guard stood frozen by the gate, exchanging nervous glances but not daring to interfere. They had learned long ago that domestic storms in powerful households were best weathered in silence. Kemi's chest heaved as she surveyed the damage. Broken windows, shattered glass, scattered debris. But her anger still burned hot in her veins. She needed to hurt him where it would matter most. She stormed back into the house, her bare feet crunching on crystal fragments. Her fury led her up the curved staircase to their master bedroom. The king-size bed sat unmade, a silent witness to her lonely nights. But it was the mattress that caught her attention. Thick, expensive, imported from Italy. Let him come back to nothing, she spat, her voice breaking with emotion. With strength born of desperation and rage, Kemi gripped one end of the heavy mattress. Foam scraped against the marble floor as she dragged it inch by inch. Sweat poured down her face, but she refused to stop. Down the staircase, through the corridor, across the foyer, her expensive jewelry jangling with each step. The house staff watched in shocked silence as their madam wrestled the mattress through the front door and into the blazing afternoon sun. With one final surge of strength, she shoved it onto the garbage heap by the roadside, where it landed in a cloud of dust and attracted the immediate attention of flies. "There!" she gasped, wiping sweat from her brow. "Sleep with your whores, Adebayo. You don't deserve this bed. You don't deserve this house. You don't deserve me." She turned and walked back through the gates, her head held high despite her disheveled appearance. The security guards quickly closed the gates behind her, their eyes carefully averted. What Kemi didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that hidden deep within the layers of that Italian mattress were bundles of foreign currency worth millions. Senator Fashola's secret insurance policy, his escape fund built from years of corruption, now lay baking in the Lego sun among banana peels and plastic bottles. As she stood in her air-conditioned foyer, surrounded by the wreckage of her rage, Kemi felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in years, she had acted instead of endured. She had fought back instead of suffered in silence. Outside, the mattress settled into the garbage heap, its precious secret hidden from view. Soon, the afternoon scavengers would arrive for their daily search through the refuse. And among them would be a former banker named Emeka, looking for anything that might put food on his family's makeshift table. Fate was about to weave together the threads of destruction and redemption in ways that none of them could imagine. A political marriage explodes in violence, and a secret fortune lands in the trash. But what happens when desperation meets destiny? The next chapter will blow your mind. Hit that subscribe button now, because you won't believe what Emeka discovers in that garbage heap. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the waste collection point near Olusegun Market. Emeka dragged his half-filled sack along the dusty roadside, his worn slippers slapping against the hot asphalt. His shirt clung to his back with sweat as he bent to examine discarded items. A dented pot here, some plastic bottles there, anything that might earn him enough naira to buy rice and beans for dinner. The familiar ache in his lower back reminded him of 3 years spent bending, lifting, and carrying. His hands, once soft from office work, were now calloused and permanently stained with dirt. But Emeka had learned not to dwell on the past. Survival required focus on the present moment, on the next item that might have value. That's when he saw it. Lying awkwardly beside the usual heap of refuse was a mattress. Not just any mattress. This one looked expensive, with quality stitching in Italian fabric that seemed out of place among the banana peels and plastic sachets. Emeka stopped walking, blinking against the sunlight to make sure his eyes weren't deceiving him. "A mattress," he whispered, his heart beginning to race. For months, he and Chioma had slept on bare concrete in their abandoned building. Every morning, they woke with aching backs and sore hips. Chioma never complained, but he'd seen her wince when she thought he wasn't looking. This mattress, clean, intact, barely used, was more valuable than gold to a man who understood the luxury of comfortable sleep. Without hesitation, Emeka dropped his sack and grabbed one end of the mattress. It was heavier than expected, but desperation gave him strength. He didn't care that other scavengers were watching, some laughing at his determination. To them, it was just an unwieldy piece of furniture. To him, it was hope made manifest. "Even if it breaks my back, I will carry this home," he muttered through gritted teeth. Step by exhausting step, he dragged the mattress away from the garbage heap. Passers-by stared, some with amusement, others with pity, but Emeka ignored them all. He was a man with a mission, carrying what felt like a gift from God back to the woman who had stood by him through every hardship. The journey to Mushin took over an hour. Several times he had to stop and rest, his chest burning from exertion. But each time he looked at the mattress, he thought of Chioma's smile, and strength returned to his arms. When he finally reached their abandoned building, sliding the mattress through the doorless entrance, he called out breathlessly, "Chioma, come and see what God has provided." Chioma emerged from the corner where she'd been mending clothes by hand. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of her husband standing beside a beautiful mattress, his face glowing with exhausted triumph. "Emeka, where did you find this?" she asked, running her hands along the fabric. "Beside the refuse heap near the market," he said proudly. "Someone threw it away, but it's perfect. Tonight, my wife, we will sleep like human beings again." Chioma's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. This is truly God's provision. Look how clean it is, how soft. She pressed her palm against the surface, feeling the quality springs beneath. "We will rest well tonight." They spent the evening arranging their small space around their new treasure. For the first time in months, they had something that felt like real furniture, something that restored a measure of dignity to their makeshift home. As night fell over Lagos, they lay down together on the comfortable mattress. The difference was immediate and profound. Instead of hard concrete pressing against their bones, they sank into cushioned softness. Chioma sighed with contentment, her hand finding Emeka's in the darkness. "My husband," she whispered, "I told you tomorrow would be better. This is God's way of showing us He hasn't forgotten us." Emeka squeezed her hand, feeling peace settle over his soul for the first time in weeks. "You were right, as always. Your faith keeps us strong." They slept deeply that night, their bodies finally able to rest without pain. But what they didn't know was that their comfortable sleep was made possible by something far more valuable than spring coils and foam padding. Hidden within the mattress, carefully sewn into secret compartments, were bundles of foreign currency, dollars, pounds, and euros representing years of Senator Fashola's corruption. The desperate politicians' insurance policy had become their unexpected blessing, though they remained completely unaware of the treasure literally supporting their dreams. In another part of Lagos, Senator Fashola was discovering his loss. Having spent 2 days in various hotels, drowning his domestic troubles in alcohol and temporary pleasures, a sobering thought had finally penetrated his hazy mind. The mattress. His hands shook as he called his mansion. "Kemi, where's the mattress from our bedroom?" Her voice was cold as ice. "I threw it away. You think you can keep shaming me while sleeping in our marriage bed? I drag it out myself." The phone nearly slipped from his trembling fingers. "What are you saying? You threw away the mattress?" "Yes," she said with satisfaction. "I threw it away. Go lie with your mistresses. Adebayo, you don't deserve a home." His roar of anguish echoed through the hotel room. "You foolish woman. Do you know what you've done? My money, millions in foreign currency. Everything was hidden inside that mattress." The line went silent. Then came Kemi's voice, small and horrified. No, it can't be." "Tell me you're lying, Adebayo. Please tell me you're lying." But Fashola was already moving, panic driving him toward his car. The most corrupt senator in Nigeria had just lost his entire escape fund to his wife's righteous anger and a homeless man's desperate need for comfortable sleep. As Emeka and Chioma slept peacefully on their providential gift, fate continued weaving its intricate pattern. Soon, discovery would lead to decision, and they would face the most important choice of their lives. A homeless couple finds comfort, while a corrupt politician discovers devastating loss. But what happens when they uncover the mattress's incredible secret? The next chapter will leave you speechless. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for conclusion that will restore your faith in divine justice. The morning sun filtered through the gaps in the concrete blocks of the abandoned building where Emeka and Chioma had made their home. For the first time in months, Chioma woke without the familiar ache in her back. The mattress had provided the most restful sleep she'd enjoyed since losing their apartment in the fire. As was her custom, she rose early to sweep their small living space before the day's heat became unbearable. When she lifted one corner of the mattress to clean underneath, she noticed it didn't move as easily as expected. The weight seemed concentrated in certain areas, creating hard lumps where there should have been uniform softness. Curiosity overcoming caution, she pressed her palm along the edges, feeling strange rectangular shapes beneath the fabric. Her heart began to race as she remembered stories her grandmother used to tell about people hiding valuables and household items during times of war. With trembling hands, she retrieved her small sewing scissors from their meager possessions and made a careful incision along one of the seams. Her fingers slipped inside and immediately touched something that made her gasp. Thick bundles of paper that crinkled like currency. She pulled one bundle out and nearly fainted. Foreign money. Dollars, euros, pounds. More cash than she had ever seen in her life. With shaking hands, she reached in again and found another bundle, then another. "Emeka!" she called, her voice barely a whisper. Emeka stirred from sleep, his eyes adjusting to the morning light, when he saw his wife kneeling beside the mattress, holding bundles of foreign currency. His mouth fell open in shock. "Chioma, what, how?" "It was inside the mattress," she whispered, fear and excitement warring in her voice. "Emeka, there's more, much more." They stared at the fortune spread before them, their minds struggling to process the magnitude of their discovery. This was enough money to change their lives completely. To buy a house, start a business, live with dignity again. But Chioma's expression grew troubled. "My husband, we cannot keep this. Someone must be searching for it. What if it belongs to dangerous people? What if keeping it brings a curse upon us?" Emeka's jaw tightened. 3 years of hunger, humiliation, and sleeping on concrete had left deep scars on his soul. "Chioma, this mattress was thrown away like garbage. If anyone wanted it, they would not have abandoned it on a refuse heap. This is God's provision for us." "But what if the owner is looking for it even now?" Chioma pressed, her conscience battling with desperation. What if this money was obtained through evil means? Should we not try to return it? Return it to whom? Emeka asked, his voice rising with suppressed emotion. The police who would laugh at us and keep it for themselves? The government officials who care nothing for people like us? He gestured at their bare surroundings. "Chioma, remember the nights we went to bed hungry. Remember the rain that leaked through our roof. Remember how we lost everything to fire and no one helped us." Chioma looked at her husband's face, seeing years of accumulated pain and frustration. Slowly, she nodded. "If we keep it, we must be wise. No showing off, no wasteful spending. We act as if nothing has changed." "Yes," Emeka agreed, his voice softening. "We will use it carefully, build our lives back step by step." They spent the morning carefully concealing the bundles inside the mattress, stitching the seams back together. Their secret was safe, but the weight of decision pressed heavily on their hearts. Meanwhile, across Lagos, Senator Fashola was experiencing his own reckoning. The loss of his hidden fortune had sent him into a spiral of panic and rage. But worse than the financial blow was the political exposure. Without his secret funds, he was vulnerable to investigations he had previously been able to deflect through bribes. Within weeks, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission opened an investigation into his activities. Former allies distanced themselves as journalists began asking uncomfortable questions about his sudden lifestyle changes. The mansion that had once hosted powerful politicians now stood largely empty, with creditors circling like vultures. Kemi, meanwhile, had found unexpected peace in the aftermath of destruction. The guilt of throwing away the mattress had initially devastated her, but as she watched her husband's corrupt empire crumble, she began to see divine justice at work. "Perhaps," she told herself one evening as she sat in their increasingly empty mansion, "some fortunes are meant to find their way to worthier hands." For Emeka and Chioma, the transformation began slowly. They exchanged small amounts of the foreign currency, using the money to buy food, secure better shelter, and gradually rebuild their lives. Chioma opened a small provision shop in the market, while Emeka invested in a commercial tricycle, providing transportation services in their neighborhood. Within 6 months, they had moved from the abandoned building to a modest but comfortable apartment. Within a year, Chioma's shop had expanded, and Emeka owned 3 tricycles operated by other drivers. They were not wealthy by Lagos standards, but they had achieved something more precious than riches: dignity, security, and hope for the future. Most importantly, they never forgot where they came from. Every month, they visited the abandoned building where they had lived, bringing food and supplies to current residents. They sponsored the education of 5 street children and quietly helped other families facing eviction or medical emergencies. God lifted us from the dust. Chioma would say when people praise their generosity, how can we not lift others? 2 years after finding the mattress, they sat in their modest but comfortable home, watching the news as Senator Fashola was sentenced to 15 years in prison for corruption. The stolen funds had never been recovered. The investigation concluded, likely lost forever in the complex web of international banking. Emeka turned off the television and looked at his wife, who was preparing their evening meal. Do you ever regret our decision? Chioma smiled, stirring the pot of jollof rice that would feed not just them, but the young couple they were mentoring who lived in the flat below. My husband, I have learned that money is not good or evil by itself. It is what we do with it that matters. We took money that was meant to build schools and hospitals, but was stolen by a greedy man. Instead of letting it rot in a hidden place, we have used it to build lives, to educate children, to help families survive. She paused, looking out the window at children playing in the compound courtyard. I think God moved that woman's heart to throw away the mattress, knowing it would find its way to people who would use it for good. As night settled over Lagos, the city that had witnessed their lowest moments and greatest triumph, Emeka reflected on the strange journey that had brought them from banking halls to garbage heaps to modest prosperity. The mattress that had once hidden a politician's corruption now supported the dreams of a family committed to honest living and generous hearts. In the end, the money had found its true purpose, not as a politician's insurance policy, but as a foundation for rebuilding lives destroyed by circumstances beyond their control. Sometimes, fate's justice moves in mysterious ways, ensuring that blessings meant for the people eventually reach them, even if they must first pass to the hands of those who would steal them. From trash heap to treasure, from corruption to redemption, witness how divine justice works in the most unexpected ways. This incredible true story proves that what's meant for you will always find you. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button, subscribe for more amazing tales, and share this with someone who needs to believe in miracles today. What would you have done in Emeka and Chioma's situation? Let us know in the comments below.